Chiron represents wounds and healing. So it's really the soft underbelly, the discomfort that we are having to deal with our entire lives. It's this pattern that comes up over and over and over again. And that is our natal placement. But when we're talking about the transiting Chiron, it's going to be what's happening with the collective. It's a wound that maybe isn't our lifelong wound, but it's something, it's like a source of discomfort for that period of time. And Chiron, unlike those personal planets we just talked about, Chiron is an asteroid that is some ways out, which means it's going to spend a lot longer in a sign, not just a few weeks, months, years. Chiron first entered Taurus on June 19th. So as of recording, it's been a month and a half, and then it's still going to be there for like another month and a half before it changes. So total time, it's 3 months that we have Chiron in Taurus, and that is the full preview period where part of the end of it is a retrograde, so the energy signature is totally different. And then we're not going to have Chiron back into Taurus, locking into Taurus for its full transit until we get to April of next year. So that means the whole rest of the year, September, going through the end of the year, going all the way to April, it's going to still be in Aries. So we're going to be tidying up. We're going to be putting the finishing touches, the last minute band-aids and salves on our wounds in this area of Aries, which has been, I was going to say tormented, but has been tried, has been pushed, has honestly feels exhausted. This entire preview period is an opportunity for you also to reflect on what you were learning when Chiron was in Aries, so you can prepare for when it returns to Aries for that home stretch where it is retrograding backwards, stationing direct, and then moving in direct motion out for the post shadow. What are those final lessons that you really need to learn about Chiron in Aries? And I have a lot of resources on that. You can go back and look at my blog. I've talked about it in previous classes when we had some of these ingresses happening and retrogrades happening. Even with Chiron retrograding in Aries, like the last time that happened, you can look at that for those signatures to kind of blend into what we're talking about for the Taurus leg. Really what this means is the wounds that we have around money, security, self-worth, they're in more of the forefront right now. And as that retrograde happens, we're still going to be thinking about that, but we're going to be in more of a deeper reflection on those concepts until it gets back into Aries, in which case we go back to the old playbook and really what we were spending 8 years on. What we could do, just as the recommendation during this little retrograde period, which is in Taurus for only around a month and change, maybe just focusing on exercising, just like grounding practices, getting into the body, thinking about what we're eating, because we're trying to heal. Chiron is about healing. Taurus loves its food. So let's think about eating foods that feel healing to us in some way. Maybe we're spending some extra time in nature, having any sort of sensory experiences that allow us to connect to joy and to relax. Because if we are in a resistance energy, then that healing is going to be a lot harder or feel impossible to do. 2 planets that are at the same degree point in the same sign. And as we know, hopefully by now, Jupiter is currently in Leo. It entered Leo right at the end of June. So as of time of recording, it's been nearly a month. So the first month of 12 in this sign. And so we're really, really early in that journey. And so to have Mercury, which is coming off of a retrograde, and then at this point, a few days in to experiencing this new sign and everything that we talked about earlier with its perspective shift, it meets up with Jupiter. And so then they're in a conversation. They're trying to get on the same page. They're trying to be in sync with each other. And then Jupiter is just going to take forever to then keep moving. And Mercury is going to fly through and get in and out of Leo within a couple weeks and go into Virgo within the next month. But it's information, Mercury, that can be stowed upon Jupiter and vice versa, so that they can figure out what to do next. What are our ideas? What are the things that we're thinking about, that we're pondering, we're ideating on? What's our vision? What do we want to do in the long term? What's the big picture? If our thoughts are what we're thinking about in this moment right now today, it can be small, it can be very detailed. Vision is really long term. It's those dreams, it's like a limitless, abundant experience of reality. So they're trying to connect. What are the things I have ideas about? How can I make them bigger? How can I align them with a long-term vision? If you have a vision board, if you have your intention set for the year, could be a great time to check in on them. Are you aligned? If how you're thinking and how you're processing and how you're talking and writing and speaking and communicating, is that in alignment with the vision board that you created for the year, the intention you set for the year? Especially because we're talking about Leo, which is thinking about me, thinking about the self. Who am I? What am I interested in? When we have Jupiter, we're wanting to expand to something that's way bigger than ourselves. So it could be a day that, well, what's coming through as I'm talking is it could feel humbling of like, wow, okay, there's like so much more than I realized about this. This is way deeper. And for Leo, which is not necessarily trying to go deep, it's these two coming together and trying to consider what's bigger than us or how we can make ourselves bigger, more expanded. So this is happening at 4 degrees of Virgo. Whenever we talk about Mercury Cazimis, these are days you want to circle on your calendar. So go to your calendar, unless you already have my Life Path calendar, you already have it in there. This is August 27th. Eastern time, it's around midday, which means we're talking about that day going into the next day. And what's happening the next day? The eclipse. So our Cazimi energy portal, which usually is most potent for around a 24-hour period, and of course ripples on both sides, is directly overlapping also with an eclipse going exact in nearly the same spot. It's a day of aha moments, announcements. So it could be breaking news, a great opportunity to launch something if you want to, but maybe you don't because it's an eclipse season and eclipses are beginnings and endings. So things to consider. But you could just have a lot of insights, wisdom, information come in. A great day for conversations, maybe especially tough conversations, because your words are flowing more smoothly, unlike what I have been doing today. Your words are flowing smoothly, your mind is clear, your writing is clear, your processing is clear, there's understanding when you are talking with other people. So you have that nice, really positive, supportive portal going on in Virgo, a sign of communication and efficiency. So this is Mercury already happy in the sign of Virgo, already in its domicile, already exalted, and then it gets a Cazimi on top of it. It's like basically jumping off the walls with joy. It is so, so high functioning, being really, really efficient in wanting to develop or follow some sort of best practices or systems, processes, plans. Like maybe you just have ideas for like a really great plan and exactly how to execute it, who should be served and who benefits or how it's going to help you grow. It could just be like a lot of really good nuggets. Share that personal development story in addition to just understanding and working on your own development. So what actually happens in sequence is we have the Leo new moon, 20 degrees, 1 minute, at 1:36 p.m. Eastern time. And then 11 minutes later, we have the solar eclipse, 20 degrees, 8 minutes. So as you can see, we're moving a fraction of a degree. And that's at 1:47 p.m. Eastern time. If you have any sort of a manifestation practice, recommended to hit pause because there's a lot going on. And in fact, it's not just about the day. This is a season. So you could have up to a week beforehand where you're like, your dreams are messed up or your energy is really off. You're feeling drained. You're feeling out of it. Like there's a lot that's swirling. So even if you were to set some seeds of intention for what you want to manifest, you're kind of in a weird headspace. Energy is off. Vibes are off. Confused, disoriented, exhausted. And the signature of an eclipse being such of a beginning and an ending, you might be wanting to call something in, but you're actually calling in the ending of it rather than the beginning of it. So that's why I generally recommend people just to steer clear of that whole period of time. Harness the new moon before, and then wait until it's all done and harness the next new moon after. And just kind of skip over that period of time. So typically when we're talking about a new moon in Leo, the energetics of that are calling in confidence. So these are the things that we would normally think about wanting to have more of in our lives. How can I be more confident? How can I live in integrity and have more creativity and self-validate versus seeking validation? So those might be things that you're thinking about. This is a south node eclipse. Further to the point, a south node eclipse means things we're letting go of. So if we're saying, I want to call something in, but the signature of this eclipse is an ending, it's not compatible. So what we're trying to also work on from just the eclipse side is to release any low vibrational energies of Leo, meaning releasing ego, releasing pride, releasing drama. So that's a lot of like what we want to come in and what we want to go, and it all gets muddled together, and therefore that's why it can feel a little bit confusing or just overwhelming. And we're getting downloads. We have these big lunations and messages and information can come in, and a lot's going on around us. There's a lot of mundane astrology research studies on eclipse seasons. Like they are associated with beginnings and endings of empires and leadership and like other like major signatures, and of course they can tie them to the specific signs. So there's just like a lot going on in general, let alone how it might be making you feel. Saturn is retrograding in Aries, and this lunation, this eclipse, is happening in Leo, and they're happening in almost the same exact spot. They're around 5 degrees apart. They're pretty close. They're in the orb, which means that the Saturn retrograde energy is also going to be picked up in this eclipse. Sitting over yonder in reflection, reviewing the foundation, and it might make us feel that we want a little bit more solitude, or that we want to reinforce our boundaries, that we are tempering the fieriness, which would be good because we're not looking for an outburst here. We don't want to have a fire activation in the sense of exploding or saying or doing something that we're going to regret later. We're trying to, as much as possible, lay low. If you want to say something, maybe just write it down. If you're thinking about doing something, maybe just write it down and put a pin in it. Have it be part of your long-term strategic plan for Saturn, and have the information for later that you can use once we're out of eclipse season, once Saturn is back in direct motion and it can start building again. Versus when Saturn is retrograde, it's evaluating all of the plans, it's evaluating the foundations. It might be like, okay, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working. And wanting to just, it's like I'm picturing a Jenga. It's like taking little pieces out, like, I don't like that, I don't like that. Or just that we may be feeling a little bit more intense and heavy in some of these ways. And of course, we're talking about Leo, which is a brighter, happier, bubblier sign. So as I mentioned, I think in the first report, all August long, we have these bright spots. We have moments of illumination. Oh, this is really helpful. This is really supportive. And then there's something that's paired with it or immediately following that feels a little heavier. I gave the example, it's like you're having a fruity drink and then it leaves a weird bitter aftertaste. Probably need that check if we're going to go off and we're trying to release our ego. There's like this wise person sitting in the corner being like, yeah, don't get too big ahead. That might be really great. So it's going to depend on what's coming up, where this is happening in your life, how it is presenting. But you just want to keep in mind that Saturn is going to be playing a role, particularly in this lunation. Cleaning in general, that still works. I tend to do that on a new moon. You're still calling something in without directly calling anything in. You're just clearing the energy out in your space. So we're trying to do a reset. We're embracing it's a beginning and an ending. So maybe what you're doing when you're cleaning is you are freshening things up, making it feel new, but you might also be throwing things out. So you're doing the beginning and ending at the same time. That could work. You also could do some sort of self-care that is more artsy to tap into the Leo side. So whatever it is that you might do to try to relax, it could be listening to music, some sort of art project, something that allows you to express yourself, to release whatever is coming through, get it out onto paper, get it out through paint, through drawings, through embroidery or crochet or whatever it is, allowing the energetic flow so you don't have build up. And similarly, we don't want to only release energy. We want to conserve it as well. So trying to go a little bit slower, trying to rest if you can. I know it's a fiery lunation, which might make it a little bit trickier. You could just do some reflection, seeing what comes up, tracking your dreams. I always recommend that for eclipse season. Like, what is coming up for you? Just write it down. It might make absolutely no sense now, but you can look at it like a month out and then it will suddenly make sense to you. If you want to look back at the last Leo eclipse, that happened as a solar eclipse in particular on August 21st, 2017. And in my life path calendar, I also have the previous 6 preceding that one. So if you want to look all of those dates up and go back and track in your calendar, those are going to give you the closest signature match. So not just any Leo eclipse, but looking at Leo solar eclipses and then trying to figure out what was happening during that time, what was coming up for you. If you have any journals you can reflect in, looking at your calendar or text messages or photo albums or anything, what was going on around that period of time, that whole month, but the week before, after. Last but not least, we have the Pisces eclipse. So this is a lunar eclipse, and this is followed by the full moon in Pisces. So this is happening on August 28th at 4:51, so 4 hours, 51 minutes for the lunar eclipse. And then the full moon is at 4 degrees, 53 minutes. So again, very, very close. And these are happening even closer than the last one. So at 12:14 a.m. Eastern and 12:18 a.m. Eastern. So we have the 1-2 punch, only a few minutes apart, of the Pisces lunar eclipse and then the full moon. We can check back to a year ago. So not only are we thinking about what this eclipse means by itself, but we can also look back at the last few, which were was in 2025 and 2024. It was all, the last 2 were September, but the last 2 years in a row, these are year milestones. So what happened in the last year? What happened in the last year? What happened in the last year? And it gives us a nice, clear checkpoint to see how we have grown. Because for this lunar eclipse is a north node, which means it's something that we are moving towards. We're trying to seek out the high vibrational energy of Pisces. What works for Pisces? What's supportive for Pisces ruled by Jupiter? How does it grow? How does it help? How does it get more in touch with its emotions, intuition, wisdom, connection without overwhelm? Also creativity. This is another creative one. So this is an interesting pairing because we have Leo, which is a creative sign, and then Pisces, which is a creative sign. So another reason, and I'm going to remind us all again at the end, what was our theme for August? But there is a strong creative thread for all of the ingresses and for the lunations of us getting in touch with our creativity, tapping into those outlets, and thinking about how we connect to other people. I mentioned before, Leo is thinking about the self, but it's a very loyal sign. So it's wanting to think about those tight relationships. Pisces is also a highly, highly compassionate sign. It's like the romantic. It's always thinking about what's happening with other people. Venus is exalted in Pisces. It loves being here. So we have these signatures around creativity and close relationships and wanting to connect with people for both of these lunations as the backdrop. We can still have a normal, if you will, gratitude practice. We can look back, as I mentioned before, at the last 2 eclipses in Pisces and say, what am I grateful for since the last one, which in this case was September 7th, 2025. And then if you happen to also do a gratitude practice on that day, or if you just also want to look back at the earlier checkpoint. You look back at September 17th, 2024. These were our Pisces eclipses. These are our Pisces checkpoints. And we want to say, what am I grateful for? How have I grown in those Piscean skills, abilities? How am I more in touch with my creativity, my intuition? How am I dreaming bigger? Have I pushed myself to push the envelope, to think and be and live bigger than I was before? And not escaping, not running away and hiding. Whenever we have a full moon, let alone an eclipse, there's a lot of energy coming right at us. There's, emotions can be heightened, intuition can be heightened. So resting even more so than the Leo eclipse, but still for that too, trying to rest as much as possible. It's a Pisces moon. Let's hydrate. Let's hydrate. Let's connect to water. Let's flush things out. Pisces is also connected to the lymphatic system. So if you want to do any sort of lymphatic clearing, you can. But we're looking to reset. We are looking to recharge. So if you need time alone, we don't want Pisces to be overwhelmed by how much is coming in and shut down. We want to keep the channel open. We want the information, the wisdom to still come in. If you're feeling that you need some alone time, take the alone time. Do your rest, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's also something that's creative. Chug your water, have some tea, whatever it is. But the goal here is to try to stay as centered, relaxed, calm, and open as possible. And making note of anything that comes through, because we could have some like big truth bombs coming in. Mercury is opposite this lunation, so it is in direct tension. There is conflict. So what our mind is trying to do feels at odds with our body, with our emotional body, or with our intuition. So another reason why we want to be mindful of not like running around or running our mouth or doing something, because there's a lot that's coming up. And we have to be able to feel Pisces. We have to be able to feel and experience it. And then just think and note and Virgo, observe what's going on and not have it be of detriment to us or get in the way or be a source of conflict, like actual conflict. Because what Mercury is really trying to do in that Cazimi is focus on not trying to be perfect. Focus on letting go. It's by the South Node. So Mercury should be thinking about, what do I need to let go of? How am I getting in my own way? Because I'm supposed to be working on those Piscean traits. I'm supposed to be going that direction. What am I doing that's Virgoan? What am I doing in that area of life, wherever this is occurring for you, around that 5 degrees of Virgo? Where am I holding myself back? Where am I too structured? Where am I not allowing myself to just be free and open like Pisces wants? So that would be our pivot, rather than having a fight between the heart, emotional body, and the mind. Trying to channel just the natural energy, the excitement of that Mercury Cazimi in Virgo, of like, let's think, what do I do? Okay, well, it's going to give us wisdom. So let's try to have that wisdom as much as we can wield it to be about, what do I need to let go of? What's not working? And yeah, we may need to just give ourselves a little bit of a push to make this happen, have to wrangle our mind a little bit, because we're having a bit of a disconnect between where our mind is functioning and operating really, really intensely, efficiently, and where our spirit, our being, our emotions are just existing and flowing and trying to connect to everything. We don't want an overwhelm to our system. Activating the eclipse and pushing additional lessons. So a square is tension through a challenge. Uranus, surprise, something unexpected, something impulsive. It's in Gemini. It could be, again, something mental. Mercury also rules Gemini. So Mercury, which is activated, happy in Virgo. It also is paying attention naturally to anything that's ever going on in Gemini. And then we have this activation with Uranus and the two luminaries and this eclipse portal. So Uranus is like ready to cause a ruckus and be like, what if we do this differently? How about right now? Like it's this impulse energy to break the mold and go do something. So we also have that in the background, which is why I think this one in particular is really the one to watch out for the most. If we can plan, however we can plan, to just mentally prepare, like what are our safeguards? How do we want to approach this day? How do we want to approach how we are scheduling our time, but how we are present, to put a nice bow on everything that we have discussed today. August brings support for getting our groove back. We are seeking to live well, find our focus, and harness all of the turning points. We have all of these retrogrades, we have all of these ingresses, we have all of these eclipses. These are big turning points. And we're also rediscovering our sense of play. It came up over and over and over again. We have Leo activations, Libra activations, Pisces activations. All of these signatures that are speaking to self-expression and trying to find joy, trying to relax, trying to find ease. And that gets us back to what our August theme was, in case you have forgotten, because there's a lot going on in there, which is jazzercise in a blender. And that is because it is a month of outrageous fun in tandem with total pandemonium. And I won't say that it's explicitly chaos, but there's a lot of really big activations. And as I mentioned before, turning points, which is why it's really crucial to be light on our feet. What's jazzercise? We are moving, we are dancing, we are doing something that's fun, that's playful, that's unique, it's quirky. It's like, let's go from here to there. And we're flexible, we're moving, and just ready for whatever is next, ready for the change in the music. And the blender piece is because it's the containers, it's the circumstances of what is happening around us. There's things that are out of our control. There are like the Uranus square on the eclipses, the two eclipses that are happening. These are things that are just going on around us that will make us twirl. But guess what? We're dancing anyway. Who cares? So if we can find, it's like more than just a silver lining, because we are thinking about our health. We're thinking about our well-being when we are exercising. So when you're thinking about jazzercise, okay, it's exercise. It's like a playful, fun exercise. And then we have a blender. What do we put in a blender? A smoothie or some sort of food thing that we're making. So we have this combination here that I do think is interesting, because I mentioned before that by the end of this month, when we have Mercury going into Virgo, it might mean that we start reorienting to thinking about our health and wellness. But actually, this whole idea of play and movement and things changing and trying to be flexible is coming up, and creative is coming up the entire month, over and over and over and over and over again. And when we are creative, when we are accessing the outlets to trust our intuition, release what is holding us back, release what is dysfunctional, aware of dysfunction, trying to work with and support ourselves through all these different transits that we talked about. That's our well-being. It's our emotional well-being. It's our physical well-being. It's our psychic well-being, spiritual well-being. So it is, in fact, a benefit. Maybe all you're doing is listening to your intuition and doing something creative regularly throughout the month. Guess what? Those are going to feel really healthy. Those are going to feel grounding. They're going to feel like you have your release valve, so you can just like keep it together while things are thrown around at you. And it was really funny when I was writing this. And again, this whole section was channeled. I'm interrupting it with sidebars. But this whole visual here was kind of cracking me up, because throughout this process, whenever we have a blender, like what are the classic scenes when we are seeing a blender in like a TV show or a movie or something? Somebody overfills it, or they forget to put the lid on, and then it just goes everywhere. Like all of the contents just fly all over the kitchen and produce a mess. So that is another lesson in this month. If we know these things are coming, we know that that's always a risk with using a blender when our life is a blender, that we can put whatever checks in place. We maybe can't control exactly what is going on, or how that smoothie that we're blending together is. We're throwing ingredients in and we're hoping that it tastes good. That's a little bit of what's happening, but we can be mindful enough, cognizant enough to make sure the lid is on tight before we go. and that it can still be fun. And even if we do produce a mess, we can laugh about it. We're light on our feet, so we can be flexible and just say, oh, this is so funny, whatever. I don't even care. I don't even care. Maybe I'll just start over, or I'll just use what I have and just like put some music on and then clean as you are, dancing along to music. Like that we can turn it into a different experience. We always have the ability to do that. And what I had written down was that we can turn every mess into an art project. So whatever that might be for you this month, this thing feels really messy. We have those Virgo activations. We have Libra activations, wanting things to be balanced, wanting things to be organized and systematic. But then all of these other signatures are coming up to say, okay, but maybe this is nice. Maybe mess is good. It's like Marie Kondo. I love mess. It's like that. That every mess can be an art project. It can be a happy surprise. Yes, maybe it's Uranus coming in. Maybe it's something that's unexpected. Maybe it's great. Maybe it is wisdom, random stuff that we were not anticipating coming through with the Mercury Cazimi, coming through with one of the eclipses. It's unexpected. But maybe it actually could be great. And some of that is just how we're choosing to approach it, how open we're trying to remain. And then finally, every mess can also be an untethered, soulful embrace. That everything can actually be more meaningful than what we think it is. It can be that deep. And it's a reminder for us to, it's like what Pisces wants us to do. It wants us to stay connected to everything, not through overwhelm, but just be willing to be open. Like all of those, like Libra, Leo, Pisces, it's heart. It's heart and connection. It's what is going on with our mind, our soul, our being, our body this whole month long. Our body is present. We are connected to everything going on, even with the not Cancer, even with the Chiron retrograde in Taurus. There were connections in there. How am I connected to my body? How am I grounded? These ideas came up repeatedly throughout the month, and we can choose to embrace what is healing. And the soul food, unintended, we can embrace that soul food and go, all right, like whatever's going to happen, whatever hijinks appear, I'm just going to grab onto the stuff that's tasty, basically the things that are going to heal, nourish, and support me so that I can keep on dancing.